Welcome to Brandon's Bunker. Today we are doing weapons that MACV SOG and or LARP units carried in the Vietnam War. If you like these kinds of videos and would like to see more about with gear, packs, vehicles, different eras of war, World War I, II, etc., hit that like and subscribe button and let me know. Starting off with the M2 carbine. It's a World War II weapon. It's the brother to the M1 Garand. This version has the paratrooper folding stock, a select fire switch above the magazine for semi-automatic or fully automatic. This version has a 30-round magazine. There was also 40-round magazines and 15-round magazines. On the top left, you will see the M2 magazines that are clamped together. That was done for quicker reloads. The common ammo pouches typically carried for the M2 carbine would have been either the M2 ammo pouch or the M56 pouch, in which both carried 5 30-round magazines if packed right. I'm speaking more for the upper pouch. That usually carries 4, but if you pack it right, it'll fit 5. You will also see the 15-round double mag pouch. It's not in this photo, but you'll see it in World War II photos and etc. We have the M3 grease gun with suppressor, which is another World War II weapon. These both would have been commonly used by ARVN soldiers as well. This version has a 33-round magazine, 45 caliber. The silencer has 48 buffers inside of it. Oh yeah, the M2 carbine is 30 caliber, by the way. And the typical pouch for the M3 grease gun would have been the CISO sterile pouch or the general purpose pouch. Both can be used in multiple weapon platforms. The Cisco sterile pouch could hold AK-47 magazines, grease gun mags, Thompson magazines. The Thompson submachine gun was also another firearm commonly used. This would also hold the Uzi magazines as well. Same with the general purpose pouches, all the same magazines. Could be used for demolitions for the general purpose pouch, etc. That's why it's called general purpose pouch. On to the next page. You got your foreign enemy weapons. You got the AK-47, which could either be Russian or China made at the time. 7.62 caliber, 30-round magazine, fully automatic. This version has a folding understock. Below it, you have a chop-down RPD. This is the smaller version of the standard RPD. This one had I believe, 100-round belt. And the common pouches used for these platforms would either be the AK-47 chest rig or the AK-47 mag pouch, CISO sterile. It's the same pouch as on the previous page. Or you would have the RPD CISO sterile ammo pouch for the drum fed. Or to hold extra belts, whatever you wanted to put in there. Either or. These would be commonly used by the point men because they were typically dressed up as the Viet Cong or the NVA. They give them that combat edge to make them relook and retake at what they seen because they might not take you as an enemy right off the gate, which gives you a quicker reaction time. So that was done on purpose. Next up, we have the light machine guns, medium machine guns that would have typically been carried. First off, we have the cut down M60 with the Manpack. The M60 is a 7.62, basically .308 caliber weapon. This one I think has a 500 belt Manpack on it. Below that, you would see the rubberized M60 pouch. There was also a fabric nylon bandolier pouch as well that would hold 100 rounds. Off to the right, we have the Stoner 63 that with multiple configurations can transform into a light machine gun to a rifle. Now, the different configurations with the Stoner 63 is pretty unique. It can go from a belt-fed machine gun, as you see in the photos, with either a drum magazine with 150 rounds or the box magazine with 100 rounds. Or it could be set up in a rifle where you're feeding the magazines out the bottom. You could feed the magazine out of the side like the saw. Or you could feed it out of the top like the Bren machine gun of World War II. It could be mounted on a tripod. It could be used on the bipod. You can have a short barrel, which would be the commando barrel, or a longer barrel. The charging handle is that little nubbin below, above the ammo box on the top photo. That's the charging handle. The typical pouches used for that would have been the Stoner 63 magazine pouch, which you see in the picture. There is also a rubberized version of it. And you'll see a lot of Mamasan made pouches and clothing and gear, packs, etc. We have an example right here of a rigger made Stoner 63 ammo pouch. This would typically hold the drums or 2 boxes. This wasn't a standardized weapon, so there wasn't necessarily ammo pouches made for it. And the M60 pouch wasn't very common. So if people did get a hold of them, it would have been used for the M60 typically. Next up, my favorite section, the carbine rifles. America's first version of the carbine is the Colt 607. 10-inch barrel. Originally the birdcage flash hider on it, but they found out quickly it was loud and very bright, so they added later on a 3.5-inch muzzle brake, a 4, then a 5. And what you see in the top is the 5-inch. It's a .223 caliber, 30-round magazine, semi-automatic, full automatic, 3-round burst. This has the Colt 3x20 scope on top of it. There is also a 1970 red dot that was also used. Both weren't very commonly used because you're in the jungle, can't see more than a few feet in front of you, so I'm sure both of those were very rarely used. It has a chopped down triangle hand grip, literally cut in half off the original M16. 2.5 inches cut off of the buttstock, roughly. It's my favorite rifle out of all of them, out of all time ever created. I love this rifle. And then you have the second version, the Colt XM177, what you typically see, which was more like, it was the standardized common rifle that you mostly seen later in the war, with a 3.5-inch muzzle brake, same caliber, same function. 20 round mag box. The typical pouches used for this would have been either the M67 20 round mag pouch, which held 4 magazines, or the M67 30 round mag pouch, which held 3 magazines. There are examples of rigger made pouches and chest ammo vest, but that would be more for another video on gear and clothing. In this example, there was a 10 magazine chest rig, held 10 30 round mags, a custom made 4 mag bandolier with tiger stripe camo, or a Mama San made AK-47 chest rig, which held 6 30 round magazines, could hold mini frags, toe poppers, morphine, medical, etc. This is the typical weapons you would see commonly used in the early and late war. Moving on to the grenade launcher section. First off, you got the M16 with the XM148 40mm grenade launcher. This was the first underbarrel grenade launcher created by Colt. Has a very unique setup compared to the standard M203. And it can't even be compared to the M230. That's just way too new. The M203 was also used in late Vietnam, 1969, I believe, and up. Below that, you have the Colt 607, for the first carbine with the XM148. This version in this photo has a 40 round magazine. This is my favorite rifle of all time. And below it is an experimental semi-automatic M79. Held, I believe, 3 or 4 rounds. Off to the right top, you got the cut down M79. This would have been your most common version seen and used. There's also photos I've seen online with the XM177 and an M79 mounted to it. I did want to add it to here, but I actually forgot until now. Below that, you have the XM177 with the XM148 grenade launcher with custom-made 50-round magazines. And below that, I know a lot of gamers' favorites, the China Lake. This was used a little bit. This was more of your bulkier item, so it wasn't used very often, unless in vehicles or boats. So I've read. This would hold 4 rounds, 5 total in the chamber. Then you got in the center your Colt 40mm high explosive 40 grenade, and then you got your 40mm buckshot grenade round. Those were the 2 common rounds used for the grenade launcher. You also have smoke rounds and flare rounds as well. But grenade launchers were imperative in breaking contact mostly, because these were usually small teams, more for recon and hit and run tactics, more or less, so the lighter the better. Moving up to the M14 and the XM21. Above is the XM21, basically an M14 with a scope. This version you see on top has a collapsible stock, and it also has a select fire switch as well. Depending on which rifle you had, it may or may not have the select fire on it, but both versions were used as a sniper. The select fire simply from semi-automatic to fully automatic, as seen below on the M14E2 version. This would have been Vietnam's version of this squad automatic weapon. 308 caliber, 20-round magazine box. And same thing, select fire, full auto or semi. This one had a pistol grip and big beefy buttstock and a shoulder plate on the back. The typical pouches used for this would either have been the M64, M14 magazine pouch, or the M67 mag pouch. Both were very common to use. Now, since we're talking MAC-V and LURP, the US would not be on that. It would be a plain green pouch. Also commonly seen was Rigger made custom magazines. This one is a 40-round M14 magazine, just like the 50-round magazine made from the M16. The first version I've seen of that was pretty crazy. It was basically 2.5 magazines welded together, one chopped down and the other welded on. I mean, that's what they did and how they did it. Same with this one. It was just 2 magazines welded together. They had a lot of ingenuity, a lot of cool ideas for weapons, and a lot of good ideas that you wouldn't even see in today's weapon systems, or ideas that formed a lot of today's weapon systems. Next up, we have the odds and ends weapons that would have been used. You got an Ithaca 12-gauge shotgun with a heat shield on top, bayonet adapter. And below that, you have the Swedish K. And when the Swedish did not want to be in conjunction with the war in Vietnam, they decided that they didn't want to provide their weapon systems no more, so Smith & Wesson came out with their own version of the Swedish K. There's a 45 caliber version and a 9mm version. Off to the right, you got your 9mm Uzi with a silencer, and then you got your standard 9mm Uzi with the stock expanded and no silencer. 33-round magazine. You had your M64, M72 Law system. Light armor weapon. And then you got your 60mm mortar that would have been carried as well at times. This one has a sling on it. There would not be no butt plate carried with it, and there would not be no bipod with it. It would be handheld. And there would sometimes be a sight with it, but most of the guys were good enough to where they was able to judge it without having to put the sight on. So a lot of them didn't carry the sights either. The common pouches used for the Swedish K and the Uzis would have been the Ciso sterile pouch, the general purpose pouch, or the Ciso sterile Alice pouch. All three can hold the Swedish K, Smith & Wesson, the Uzi, Thompson, the M3 grease gun. There's also pouches used for the 12-gauge shotgun, but I forgot to put that on here as well, and it wasn't really that relevant. So, off to the next page. We got our sidearms commonly used, except for 2 of them. And one of those 2 was never used, but I just wanted to add it. Can you guess which one of the 2? I'll give you 10 seconds to find out. Anyways, the Colt Experimental Select Fire 1911-45 you see on the top left was developed in 1969. It has a heavier barrel and a heavier slide on it. And then the standard 1911, as you can see off to the right, it's a lot more beefier than a standard. Well, a little bit more beefier than your standard 1911. If you can't really tell in this photo, but it has flip-up sights on the rear, so you could either night sights or day sights. And then off on the side, you see a select fire trigger mechanism. This would literally pull back or pull forward. If you pull it back, it's in full auto. If you pull it forward, it's in semi-auto. So it's a very unique gun. Highly recommend looking it up. I love learning about it. I wish it would have been made, to be honest. But I know it's not very practical to have a 45 in full auto. But this would have been the extended magazine that would have been used with it. It held 15 rounds or 25 rounds, depending on which one you wanted. This would have been a 15 you see in the photo. In the center, we have the Colt Scamp, an experimental 27 round, an experimental pistol with a 27 round magazine, calibered in .22 Scamp. It's basically a beefy 22 caliber round. I would almost say it looks like a 9mm cartridge with a 22 bullet. It was developed in 1969 as well. This one had select fire for single or a 3-round burst. Off to your far right, you got your 1911 Colt 45. Below, the Browning Hush Puppy. This would have been carried by the SEALs also. It had a silencer, which I read in a lot of cases they would fill with hair or shaving cream. It would help lower the sound. Only for a few shots though. So it would help the baffle even more with the shaving cream apparently. It has high-rise sights. And on the side you'll see a little select lever. And that's to take it out of semi-automatic just to put it into one-shot single action fire. So therefore if the silencer was on, they would set the single fire action. That way it would shoot once and it wouldn't cock back and reload. It would keep it all silent. It wouldn't eject a round. So that was a way to keep the round from ejecting and keeping the blowback action from happening. So that's what made that pistol very unique. And common ammo pouch use would have been the 1911 45 pouch for the obvious 45s. There was a Browning pouch too for the mags as well. The Browning held 13 rounds of 9mm, while the 1911 held 7 rounds of the 45. Now, if you wanted to know which gun never happened, it was the Colt Scamp. It was developed, only 2 versions are in existence, one in working, semi-working version, the other does not work at all, and I do not know where they are located. I know I did look up the rounds. I think there was like 100 rounds, 500 rounds in existence for that weapon. And I forget what the price was, but the way I figured out to buy all those 500 rounds, it would have cost, I think, $100,000 or $500,000 or something like that, $250,000. So you're looking at $250,000, $500,000 just to buy those last and only existing rounds for the Colt Scamp. I couldn't imagine what the pistol would cost if you could ever get your hands on it. But that would have been a very cool concept. It was made in that small caliber round, so it had better fire control because they found out with the 45 version that it was too hard to control in full auto. As you can see in the Scamp, it also has raised front sights and flip back sights as well. It's a pretty beefy gun as well. I think it had a 12-inch overall barrel and slide. Barrel and slide all together is roughly 12 inches long. So it was a pretty big pistol for such a small caliber. Off to the next page. All the fun toys MACV got to play with. Off in your top left, you'll see the M14 toe popper. It is about the size of a snuff can. They were usually placed in trails on either defense or to break contact. They were big enough basically to blow your, what they're called, basically to blow your feet off. So they'll blow the front part of your foot off pretty much. Hence the name toe popper. Then since MACV liked to move light and quick, and they had a lot of stuff to carry in the first place, their gear had to be smaller than everyone else's. Well, it didn't have to be, but they preferred it, and some of it they got. Next up, you got the XM58 Pocket CS gas grenade. Roughly 6 inches in height, 4 inches in height. They were relatively small. Multiples could be carried. Then you got your white phosphorus grenade. Usually used to clear out tunnels or break contact. And then you got your standard M67 fragmentation grenade. You would also see the lemons and the pineapples used as well. The lemons were more Korea War base grenades, and the pineapples were more made in World War II. But I'm just doing the fancy stuff more or less today, so we're using the 67 grenade. Below, you have the XM166 mini smoke grenade. Again, instead of carrying the big canisters of smokes like you would see in this incendiary grenade, that would be the size of normal smoke canisters, they carried mini smokes. And these were pretty unique as well, because when you cracked them open, it had a fuse inside of it, almost like a matchstick, and then there'd be a little cardboard insert inside of it, and it was basically the striker. So it basically had its own striker and lighting mechanism inside of it to use. They came in white, green, red, and yellow. I've seen versions of purple as well, but purple is extremely rare to find in the mini smoke. Next up, you have the Type 1 and 2 V40 mini grenades. These ones were painted tiger stripe. These were about the size of golf balls. I've seen photos where the World War II Charlie's bandage pouch that were carried could usually fit 3 of those mini frags inside of it. So it wasn't uncommon for them to carry, I think it was 6 to 15 of these on top of 6 normal grenades. Next up, you have the incendiary grenade. Self-explanatory, it makes fire. It burns things. Use it to melt down gear, burn down whatever you need to burn down, get people out of holes, whatever. Up top, you have your Claymore mine, M18 Claymore mine. This was used for defense or break contact or ambushes. Off to the right, you'll see a custom cut down Claymore pouch. You would see these used typically, and if you did see these, sometimes the other half was in conjunction with this front pouch, and it would either carry a second Claymore or it would be used as a mini pack, just to carry a couple extra essentials. Below it is one of my favorite items besides, well, we'll get to that. And below it's my next favorite item, the fragmentation det cord. This is simply det cord wrapped with fragmented washers. So once the washers blew up, they were cut in a way to where they would fragment and spread fragmentation like a grenade. And these could either be set up just like a Claymore. You can put a tripwire on them. You can hand detonate them however you wanted to. This would also be used for breaking contacts or ambushes. So there's 4 items on here. That's my all-time favorite. Like for the demolitions, it'd be the toe popper, the V40 mini frags, the det cord, and the mini smoke. Well, I guess and the mini gas too, but the M14s and the mini 40s are my favorite. Final on the list, we have the bayonets and knives used in Vietnam. You got the Model 18 crutch-handled knife, which is called that because it looks like the bottom of a crutch. There were different versions. There were some that had grooves cut into it for better hand grips. Inside of that handle, you can store survival items because these handles were also hollowed. Serrated edge on it. Off to the bottom, you got your 5th Special Forces bayonet that was created specifically for the 5th Special Forces. Or by them, I can't remember which one. But it would typically be today known as your SOG knife. Off into the middle top, you got your M7 bayonet with an upgraded handle that doubles as brass knuckles. It could still be weapon mounted if you have a full-size M16. But it also has knuckles on it. It was an experimental model made by Colt. Not widely produced, but still used somewhat. And below that, you got your Corman Bolo. Originally manufactured in World War I. It was used for the Corman originally to chop off body parts. But in Vietnam, they decided to use it as a mini machete. Top right, from 1964 to 1970, you got your push dagger. I can't remember the company who made it, but these were used as well, not as common. You would also see the pilot survival knife used as well. I don't have it in here because I figured the crutch handle knife's pretty much about the same thing. And then below it, you got your experimental rifle mounted K-bar. Just like it sounds, it's a rifle mounted K-bar. That's all. I hope you enjoyed what you've seen today. If you'd like to see more, hit that like and subscribe and comment below. Thank you. Have a great day. Again, this is Brandon's Bunker. Over and out.